never really recovered and came back, and then influenza came and took him away at a young age. All right, the snows of August to Apollinaire's ghost. It's snowing, Guillaume, across the frozen entrenchments. A sea of mud surrounds the Maxim gun emplacement. The femur of a Hun juts from the wall of the escarpment. Some cosmic joker has hung a bandolier and shaving mirror from this lost and tragic skeleton. Across the mist, I see the dead dance and waver. Across no man's land, their bones bleached by the sun, white against mud. The chiaroscuro of this abattoir, beyond Raphael's skill, beyond the skill of Leonardo, trading viscera for bones. All the spokes on Leonardo's wheel-splayed man broken. Here is winter in August, that you wrote love poems to Marie, to Louise, and best of all, to your new love, Madeline. Here is a new love poem, Guillaume. You who made bond bursts into sparkling and transient flowers, who thought of walks on the boulevard of La Chapelle, beneath the shells whistling overhead, who likened the chalk trenches to the ancient and beautiful walls of antiquity. The Don Juan of 1003 comets, whose Madeline made exploding shells into insolent nipples of heaving earth, who saw cherry-colored horses and machine guns of gold, and among the roses, the severed hands of children. To you, Guillaume, who left us when your head became marked by the Boche's shell, and your poetry merged with another reality it could not overtake. To you, Guillaume, who walked with the stars of your heart across the carpet of the universe. The snows of 1918 will last forever. We're probably all familiar with Barbara Buckman, the Dawn's of August. So I was trying to incorporate that. I've become interested in writing poems that are longer than just short lyrics. And the problem is what kind of, it's a problem of form. How do you organize that? And so one of the reasons I was so interested in Guillaume Apollinaire is that he wrote this very long poem called Zone. And it consists of him walking around Paris and recording all of the sense impressions. And then as he's doing that, he's remembering something. And if he sees like a school where he was a young man, it triggers off a set of associations. And this is part, I would classify it as impressionistic in a certain way because you're using memory to move back and forth in time and place. But also cubist because you're looking at something from multiple perspectives. And you can call it a kind of analysis. So I've started writing these longer poems in sections or sequences and investigating, putting different perspectives and taking jump cuts in time and place. I'll read for you the fifth one. This was written back, I guess, what was it, 07. And the idea was that I would ride the train from here to Chicago, and I would take one of my favorite yellow legal pads and a pen, no laptop for me, technology like this works. So I would write without stop, all the way up. And I, of course, by the time I was done, I had this, and how in the world do I deal with that and make it into kind of a poem? But the idea was that my perceptions are being forced and rushed as this train is clipping along at 80 miles an hour, and I'm seeing what's going on with the people in the train. And you heard me mention Allen Ginsberg earlier. He wrote a poem called Iron Horse, and it was very definitely trying to deal with what was going on with Vietnam, and I wanted to write a poem that would try to deal with what was going on with Iraq. So I felt I wanted to kind of, what's the English department term? Intertextual relationship.
Cool.
Anyway, movement 5. 2 blasts of the air horn, and the train tugs at its couplers. Springfield's back lots, cinder and grass for parking, silver puddles of rain. On the former GM&O, where the freight house stood, green shingles from memory, and the elevator demolished, the rails of its siding covered in asphalt. Clapboard homes on the north end, east in large letters for water, CWLP on the city's towerless tank. Double track and the joints dissolve, a smooth glide on the ribbon rail. Amid the strip of trees, December dressed in gray and brown. Through the diamond at Ridgely, rough track, and at Sangamon Avenue, the old Chicago and Alton yard, ladder tracks out for a decade. Grain hoppers in piles of tires, winter sunlight on gold weeds. The hogger widens the throttle, oscillating trucks of the streamlined coach. The 4 tracks funnel to high iron, burning the ballast toward 80, the legal limit, with the signal displaying high green. The train shouts for the crossing, cants to the banked roadbed. The steam-era wires of the telegraph sag, azure insulators arrive from old age. Snow column woods by the Sangamon's banks, backyards crowded against the tracks, and plastic toys faded from summer sun. A swimming pool with green water shrouded in haze. Mid-aged brunette, small girl, going to Chicago. A pleasant voice and a face to match. Between the windows and leaning seat, tiny fingers and blonde hair. Going to Chicago. Big Joe Williams with Count Basie. Does the brunette know? Sorry, but I can't take you. I can't take Joe Williams. Through corridors of cement and steel, then charging across the black fields. At Lincoln, into the hole, the target approach displays approach, and the siding with jointed rail. Aunt Melissa, now Emily, you gotta lean back. Come lay on my lap. In the shallow pool, the ties oozing with with creosote. Sit back, Emily. Aunt Melissa. Bird nests, for winter, clumped in bare trees. Hey, Aunt Melissa. Under translucent ice, straw-colored grass in the slough, moving to track speed with a swelling roar in the vestibules. The trucks hunt for the center. Spotting cars in the elevators, decrepit tracks, the Union Pacific local. Headlights in the winter gloom, rust on the siding, a switch leading to nowhere. Suddenly, a pair of blue eyes between the window and chair, and language and pencil move only so quickly. Wishing for Alan's Ampex, the Luddite couldn't be bothered to bring his laptop, just an eraser and 3 leads. From the headlines this morning about Iraq, quote, all combat divisions engaged, unquote. For many miles, the mother road without traffic, amid patches of snow, green grass in December, with the poet's extremities growing cold. 1930s galvanized shacks, a waterworks from another depression, and the roadbed rises to roofline. Past houses on tiny lots, a pickup in motley sections, piles of sawdust, and an oil-smeared tractor with bucket. At Lincoln, storefronts from the Golden Age, half-shuttered and ghostly. Old Joe's, Stroh's Beer, State Bank of Lincoln, like the Monitor's turret. Lincoln, the letter in frost-heaved cement. From the Diamond Stack Steam Age, the Freight House in brick and stone. The Alton route. Gray, white houses with smoking stacks, empty lots and a hurricane fence. The Illinois terminal roadbed with trees in its midst, and the foreground a blur of green. A Carnegie Library in McLean, on a sidetrack without ballast, kernels of corn heaped in pyramids. Standing over the loop, the approaching hum of the southbound as my coach jolts into motion. This hogger hath not a delicate touch. The trailing coach telescopes from my view. Copper verdigris on the telegraph. And the thieves have no interest? No electrons across the limp wires. The string of hoppers, a wall of gray rust. They have leveled the Alton shops, an old man to no one in particular. In the bright colors of children, a crane and forklift in yellow and green. A relay box with its cables cut off and its doors crazed with thick paint. The tower bereft of signals, sidings with rusted railheads. At the city limit, the town of Normal, and a water tower in beige. Fields of new condos in row upon row. Amid simultaneous movies, a single headphone. Everyone in a bubble on public transport. Barber pole painted cement trucks, rough tracked by the igloos of salt, piles of white spilling from their doorways, junk autos in backyard lots. A rock while rolling at track speed, past the university farms, past the section of Route 66, past the tractors in I-55, with a movie for children blasting away in the seat before me, past the powdery snow settled in weedy grass, past the gray fog hanging along the right-of-way. Then the movie intrudes again. A girl karates a man into unconsciousness. McDonald's, Best Western, Shell Oil. Are they in support of the war? More junkyards and dead zone winter bleakness. Give my money to Shell Oil and support the war. Does the farmer with harvester silos support the war? A frozen pond covered with geese, green shingles and gray wood. From the 20s, a corn crib. And next to us, 66, broken cement with dead weeds. Busted up, to employ the vernacular, ragged joints filled with black tar. The loudspeaker emits a squawk, a tiny grandam with a crossword puzzle. Pontiac Prison, where my friend worked among the condemned. Scotty, who spent his 19th year sloshing around stinky rice paddies amid orange mud. It was nothing but murder, Brian. A vacant parking lot and a burned out sign. The Palomar Motel, a la Vegas in 1950. Variety Liquor Mart, Cool, Marlboro, State Lottery. A whistle post without tracks, hard to erase the industrial age. And back to Iraq. No one in uniform, no discussions with servicemen in the club car as in Allen's Iron Horse in the 60s. Quote, all active combat units engaged, unquote. A circumstance not to be questioned. Thistles and round bales in the winter pasture. The DVD louder in volume. No one exists except his mother and child. Garfield, it's lunchtime. 304 wide open at 80. Two long, one short, one long through the entire town by the end. Strawberry shortcake. An issue of Decadence. A windmill in crib, the barn in collapse. A vignette from my grandfather's time. There is no war, not for the American people. The media canceled the series, War in Iraq, due to poor ratings. The station made out of stone at Dwight and its flag in good trim. Quote, in honor of the Dwight area veterans who served in our armed forces, unquote. A way to face it on Main Street. After the main drag, ubiquitous trailer parks, by a blue factory, waffle-side boxcars. Shall I go to the club car and look for the ghosts of Vietnam? And if I found one? When we came home, it was as if none of it mattered. Reeves Funeral Home, Rug Ford, and at Town's Edge, the rest, shuttered by Walmart. We're waiting for a choo-choo to go by. Most Americans want out, but spoken only in private to avoid ridicule by the press, with poets banned for 40 years from our national studios in Minor Heimat, the land of the free. In the hole for the down train, similar to another trip from Syracuse to Chicago on the New York Central in twilight, at the station in Toledo, trackless umbrella sheds, and my mother against the Vietnam War with a passenger bound for Detroit. Trash piles and burn pits next to the track's edge, smokestacks of the armory like two giant mechanical pits. And where are the Joliet stockyards of my grandfather? Trees growing in sidings, graffiti on railroad arrows, corporate tags versus the Bloods and Crips, Southwest Auto Salvage. For a yard no longer in existence, a steel lattice of lights, a museum at Lockport, then the depot at Smerton. White tanks like inverted cake pans, jets of steam and a cracking plant, 3 stacks with platforms like knuckles. On cinder ballasted sidings, tank car, tank car, tank car, Citgo. Chavez doesn't support the war, but his refinery stays open. Piles of blue coal, industrial buildings with green roofs, yards for tractors and trailers, past Lamont and its Amshack, with the canal 100 yards to the west. Like the Erie and Syracuse, through time and 2 states. Joliet, city of tank cars and refineries, rusty barges and junk yards for trucks, sun shadows on winter grass, a pattern for a saison. In the hole for a 3rd time. Anyone like a cookie? A 7-year-old. Red over red, the manual siding at Justice, transmission towers in oxide red, sharp sidings and black cars, Illinois Central, a switch engine, renewable products marketing group, truth and advertising, bright sky, the gray weather has lifted, at Canal Point, crossing the IHB, gray rolls of steel in the gondolas, over the Santa Fe, at the interlocking tower, a sign, vote Democratic. Brick walls of the warehouse district, the sidings abandoned, and every block decorated with gangster tags. The wood porches stacked in backyards, a Chicagoland style. Asian nail and tanning salons, a block of roof peaks like a sawtooth. Come have it all at Riverside Homes. Empty spaces where factories once stood. Where do the people work now? Run after the shootout, December 7th, 1941. America will not forget, September 11th, 2001. An empty factory painted red, white, and blue. Hoffman Properties, available. To the north, drawbridges with shanties a century old. Sailboats parked behind the barbed wire. 2059 South Canal, Allied Metal Company, smelting and refining. Its tower, its water tower, sans tank. Then over the lift bridge, beside the sinuous banks, condos like pagodas for the well-heeled, and into the yard of commuter trains where I ventured once as a boy, connecting the past to the present. Double slip switches at Roosevelt Road, and where the express terminal stood, Whole Foods, a block-long marble and chrome gestured Art Deco. For a moment, a black cavern at Union, silver gleams on the railhead, rumble of prime movers beside me, corrugations of stainless and green-tinted glass. The lights flickered and then regret, Iraq, forgotten in wonder, at the post-industrial South Side, and Emily gone with her aunt. In the great room, sibilant murmurs between echoes, with the glass vaulting above me. Octagonal sunflowers, columns of Corinthian leaves painted in dull gold, and the cast iron lamps, their pedestals line the perimeter. Iraq again, and this waiting room, from an earlier wartime, GIs, airmen, sailors, Marines, waves, and wax, all combat divisions engaged. And there are no USO booths for ladies in paper caps, but the red glitter of styrofoam spheres, 5 feet in circumference, velvet bows on a 20-foot tree, no figures in bronze, nor even a plaque to mention their passing. Germany, Japan, Italy, Seoul, and Saigon, all combat divisions engaged. No collection for war widows or their children on food stamps, just amnesia in general. Here in this temple to transport, from those who yet linger amid the still space, their voices speak from the stone, marble, and granite. I call on Mnemosyne and her 9 daughters, on Cleo's fair sisters, lest the 4,700 become numbers unknown. White mantras I sing against the black songs of the President, of the Congress, the Department of State, and the media's generals. Dark windows with gold stars on the desolate blocks. My mantra, a charismatic hymn to vanquish their yantras of control. Microphones deafen, Blackberries, encryption devices, and code unintelligible. I cannot stop the war with language, Alan. or summon national memory with this poem. I can only record the aporia of our passivity. Cold marble above canal,